Hi, my name is Andrea Koch, and the disorder that I picked for genetics is 21-hydroxylase deficiency. So 21-hydroxylase deficiency is one of a group of disorders known as congenital adrenal hyperplasias that interrupt sexual development through disrupting hormone production. This specific deficiency affects the adrenal glands that rest on top of the kidneys, and there are multiple types of 21-hydroxylase deficiency. I originally just picked congenital adrenal hyperplasias, but there's too many, so I decided to narrow it down to 21-hydroxylase deficiency, but even then there are multiple types of it, so we're going to get into some of that. So there are 3 different types. There are 2 classic forms and 1 non-classic form. The 2 classic forms are known as salt wasting and classic viralizing, while the non-classic is just known as non-classic, and it is also considered the least severe of the 3. So the type that you have is based on severity of symptoms. So salt wasting is life-threatening. It is the worst form of 21-hydroxylase deficiency. There's a list of some symptoms here. The external symptoms for both classic forms are ambiguous genitalia in females and males. Externally, you can't distinguish male or female despite internally having normal male or female reproductive organs. So classic viralizing is not as life-threatening as salt wasting, but is still of concern, and the non-classic forms are considered rare, and there are some people that have non-classic forms, but they're asymptomatic, so they show no there's no outward identifiers of having 21-hydroxylase deficiency. So later in life, for both classic forms, there are some symptoms that are noticeable, like early puberty, excess hair, acne, reduced fertility, testicular enlargement, and tumors. And for non-classic forms, it depends on male or female. So for females listed here, we have excessive hair growth, male pattern baldness, and reduced fertility. And for non-classic males, it's early beard growth, penis enlargement, and small testes. So, like I said, non-classic is considered rare, and some people diagnosed may not even realize they have it because they show no symptoms. So the prognosis for 21-hydroxylase deficiency is usually pretty good, as long as there's early diagnosis and treatment that's working for each individual. But again, it depends on severity of symptoms, if treatments are working, and if there are any comorbidities associated with the 21-hydroxylase deficiency. So long-term complications have to do with fertility and mental health problems. So a comorbidity could be depression, which could make struggling to find the right kind of treatment option even harder. So on the right side of your screen is a 12-year-old female that has untreated congenital adrenal hyperplasia. So this is a good example of the ambiguous genitalia, because externally you can't determine male or female specifically through appearance. So the cause of 21-hydroxylase deficiency has to do with a specific gene on chromosome 6, and it is known as cytochrome P450, family 21, subfamily A, member 2. CYP21A is what I have been, A2 is what I've been calling it, because that is a mouthful. So mutations in this gene will cause a decrease in the production of an enzyme known as 21-hydroxylase, and this enzyme plays a role in producing different hormones that are essential for bodily function. 2 of those hormones are known as cortisol and aldosterone. So when you have less of 21-hydroxylase, you're not breaking down as many hormones, so they're getting converted to aldosterone, which sometimes aldosterone, not all the time. I don't want to say 100% of the time. But when you get a buildup of aldosterone, that's when you start to see the external symptoms like ambiguous genitalia, excess hair, things like that. So the amount of functioning enzymes determines the severity of the deficiency. So, for example, the classic salt wasting, there's almost no functional 21-hydroxylase, whereas the non-classic forms have a substantial amount of functional 21-hydroxylase, and the classic viralizing falls somewhere in the middle. So a lot of 21-hydroxylase deficiency has to do with the severity of symptoms and the severity of the mutations that are affecting 21-hydroxylase, the enzyme. So I found a picture in my research of specifically where on chromosome 6 CYP21A2 is. So it's on the short arm of chromosome 6 at position 21.33, and I also have listed the molecular location between the base pairs, which is 32 million to 32 million. kind of big numbers, but in essence, I did the math. So CYP21A2 is about 3,229 base pairs in length, or should be 3,229 base pairs in length if I did my math right. So that's a good picture of where exactly this gene lies that is responsible for 21-hydroxylase deficiency when it mutates. So the mode of inheritance for 21-hydroxylase deficiency is autosomal recessive. So from genetics, we know that in order to have a recessive genetic disorder, you have to have 2 copies of the mutated allele of the gene. So in order for a kid to get this from their parent, they either have to have 1 affected parent and 1 carrier, or 2 carrier parents to inherit the genetic disorder. So in other words, you have to be homozygous recessive to have it, otherwise you're just considered a carrier, and carriers don't show symptoms. So a good example of this is the 2 pedigrees that I have here. The one on the left from the Zurich family has 2 carrier parents, and all 3 of their offspring are affected with 21-hydroxylase deficiency. And then on the right we have family NY, where we still have 2 carrier parents, but instead of having all of the children affected with 21-hydroxylase deficiency, we have 1 female that is affected, a male and a female that are carriers, and then 1 male that is completely unaffected, meaning he's homozygous dominant, so he has no mutated copy of the gene to pass on if he chooses to marry and have kids. So, looking into genetic testing options, every newborn in the U.S. is required to be screened for all 3 forms of 21-hydroxylase deficiency. So, should that test become positive, then hormone levels will be tested to determine the severity of the condition, and that's where you determine treatment options and prognosis and things like that. But there are also prenatal options. Prenatal testing is available, so it's amniocentesis, chorionic villus sampling, and maternal blood tests. So for your convenience, I've got a picture here that shows the difference between amniocentesis and chorionic villus sampling. Both prenatal testing options that mothers can choose or families can choose if they would like to figure out before birth what they're dealing with if they have a kid who has 21-hydroxylase deficiency or not, or even as a carrier for it. So to wrap up, I wanted to give some of the resources that I found when looking up 21-hydroxylase deficiency. There are big support groups out there, a lot of testing centers that are willing to work with those who are inflicted with 21-hydroxylase deficiency. So we've got the Adrenal Insufficiency United and Congenital Adrenal Hyperplasia Research, Education, and Support Foundation. So there are 2 websites here that offer a lot of support and different kinds of testing centers and advice for people who deal with 21-hydroxylase deficiency. So that is the disorder, the genetic disorder that I picked for this class. I hope I covered everything. If I didn't, please let me know. Ask questions. I hope you enjoyed my presentation, and thank you for watching.